السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسولنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. أما بعد, may Allah Ta'ala inshallah accept all of your qiyam. May Allah Ta'ala inshallah accept all of your istighfar and your dua and your tilawah inshallah. I pray that this was a night in which all of our necks were saved from the fires of hell inshallah, and we were enveloped in Allah's mercy and His rida inshallah. Today we're doing ayat 58 until 62 of Surat Yusuf. And these ayat begin with Allah Ta'ala saying, وَجَاءَ إِخْوَةُ يُوسُفَ فَدَخَلُوا عَلَيْهِ فَعَرَفَهُمْ وَهُمْ لَهُ مُنْكِرُونَ. So the great reunion between the brothers is about to happen. And these ayat don't have any big revelation in them. They all seem to build up. But they do indicate yet again the beauty of Allah's methodology in telling stories, especially in this surah in the Quran. Allah only includes details that are required to understand the lessons and the meanings that He's trying to get across. And He leaves out a lot of other things. And some of the things He leaves out forces you to ask questions and look deeper into what the verses are referring to and what happens in the background. But this first verse begins by Allah Ta'ala saying that the brothers of Yusuf now come in to his hall. He is aware of them, he recognizes them, but they have no idea who he is. And I remember when I was younger, this was something that confused a lot of us. Like, how could you possibly see your brother and not recognize him? But as I've gotten older, this actually becomes very believable. If you go back and look at pictures of me when I was in my younger years, I do not look the same. My hair is gone. My facial structure seems to have changed. Even the way I smile seems to have changed. And definitely the work that you end up doing, the life work that you end up doing, impacts the way you carry yourself and the way you're seen by people. And so you can imagine these brothers got rid of Yusuf all those years ago when he was younger than them, weaker than them, incapable of defending himself. They're not expecting to walk into Egypt and see him in this seat of power. That's not what they're expecting to do. Yusuf, on the other hand, is fully expecting them. And the reason why Yusuf is expecting them is that he, given the interpretation he made of the dream of the Pharaoh, he was placed in charge of the provisions of the land and he planned accordingly. So during the heavy years of harvest, Yusuf made sure that the coffers of the kingdom were filled up and that they saved the grain and corn as necessary in preparation for the lean years. And none of the lands around Egypt and no one else in Egypt was prepared for this famine. And so Yusuf knew now, everyone from the surrounding areas, and the ulama say everyone from Greater Sham, were now having to come to Egypt to get provisions because they didn't have it. They were all going through this famine. So Yusuf is fully expecting at some point, my family should come back. And they were never expecting that they would see Yusuf in this seat of power. So the brothers are coming to get their provision. And the ulama comment a little bit on this and they say it must have been that Yusuf alayhi salam had established some sort of permit system where because he's managing the volumes of food, you have to come into him if you want to get corn, you have to barter for it, and you can only get enough to feed your family. And this now goes into the next ayah, how Yusuf alayhi salam tells them or gives them the certain amount that they're asking for, but then he insists that they bring the brother back to him. Bring me your stepbrother. And again, this forces the question, why would the stepbrother ever come up? If they don't know this is Yusuf, and Yusuf's not letting them know that it's him, how would the brother come up in conversation? And the ulama say what must have happened was because there is a quota per person, the brothers of Yusuf now have to define how many people we're feeding back home. And so they're giving the full number. And so they say, we have a father, we have a brother, and we have all of these women in our household. You have to give us enough for all of them. And naturally now, Yusuf has to vet all the information. And so how come the two other men of your family didn't come with you? Where is your father and where is your stepbrother? As for your father, you're telling me he's older than you, he's not able to travel, I can believe that. But how come this young stepbrother of yours doesn't make the trip with you? And so there's a difference of opinion here. What happens? Does Yusuf actually give them the food up front or not? It seems from the ayah that Yusuf withheld the food for the stepbrother. And he said, you guys came, I'll give you enough for you, I'll give you enough for your father, but nothing else. And then he tells them, the next time you come back, bring me your brother, and I will have no problem to give you the additional food. And if you do not come back with your brother, I will know that you are liars, and so you will have nothing for you. But he told his servants, I want you to sneak into their food the additional amount that they asked for, so that when they get back home, they see that I was even more just with them than they thought I was. So I want them to get back and then notice this Aziz, this man who is taking over the food and taking care of it, has actually given us more than we expected. He treated us as if we were honest, even though we didn't have evidence that we had this extra brother. And he wanted it to be an incentive that they come back. And so the ulama are saying here what Yusuf was doing was that he wanted to ensure that they do not go and stay behind. He wants them to come back with Binyamin, and he wants the father to let them bring back Binyamin, and so he did this as an act of good faith. I need you to bring back proof of the last brother, but when you get there, you'll recognize that I actually gave you enough. And that's where the ayat essentially stop. They get back home and they recognize that Yusuf alayhi salam had snuck it in. And tomorrow, inshallah, we'll pick up with the remaining ayahs. Jazakumullah khair. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.